Welcome back, everybody. This is Night Flight, and today Sonia Barrett is back. I'm very excited about this because she is a very, very busy lady, and you might know her. Her website is therealsoniabarrett.com. She also has a wonderful YouTube channel. She has written books. She is a public speaker, a documentary filmmaker. A lot more is to be said about her, but this will suffice for now. So, Sonia, so glad to see you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me back. It's good to see you as well. Yes, good to be back.
So you wrote a fantastic article. No one fails at life.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And I thought that is so true. And it is very much needed,
Mm-hmm.
especially right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so walk us a little bit through that, why you felt the urge to write that.
That's a good question. Because as I do things, I write it and then it's out of my head, it's on there, and then I'm like, boom, on to the next thing. But um, I think, I've done several workshops lately. I do that monthly free teleconference, and I think just hearing people's responses to different things, how we're plagued by our lives, and how so many people feel invaluable, vulnerable, not good enough, not whatever. There's so much lack that people feel, so much deficiency in some way or another, not good enough for a relationship or in a relationship or, with friends. It's just, everybody's plagued by it in some way. And so, particularly now, if we go to the area of just what we're dealing with right now with people and jobs and different things, and even with our parents saying that they want the best for us, and it's like, well, what does that really look like? And then the pressure that people receive because they're not living up to, they say you're not living up to your full potential, and it's like, who's measuring all this stuff? So in my mind, it was that there. And I remember I dated someone many years ago for a long time, and he was a lawyer. And I remember his true love was really music. But I remember that his parents were still disappointed in him because he didn't become a doctor. So they were still disappointed, and so you get these measuring sticks that people have, and so people still feel like they failed at their lives. They might not say those words, but they're constantly striving to achieve something based on this social barometer. And so that, I think, taking all of that into account, that's really where why the article was written, um, and to let people know, like, there is no such thing as failing. The guy on the street, he's pushing that shopping cart. He is maybe what you call crazy. He's maybe what you call, experiencing a moment without our traditional dwelling experience at this time. But all of our choices, all of our beliefs about ourselves drives this. It's driving everything that we do, every position that we land ourselves in. Something has driven us to that space and that point. And I think it's more looking at life from that perspective, as opposed to just going directly to, well, you're a failure. Well, well, you're a failure and a loser. What is the model of reality that this person has? What is the belief that's driven that person to where they are right now? And every place that we are, and that was the other thing, is every position that we are in our lives, if we can see that there is something in it, there is some sort of value in there, there's something else in there, why you're standing in this moment of your life, and being able to review things from that standpoint. What I find is we have a, for lack of another way of describing it, we stand a better point of being able to move ourselves from those positions when we can accept, acknowledge them, and not spend so much time trying to distance ourselves from, what we think it is in a negative way, but kind of see, well, what is it presenting us with at this moment. Then we can have a chance to move forward without trying to measure up to these social expectations and family expectations and all these measuring tools that we have and comparisons that we make. We can do all of that. We can come into the freedom of, I think, a more authentic self and be okay, with giving ourselves permission to move forward. I'll stop there. There's other things that I do want to mention that was in the article that I think is super important for people to understand.
Yeah. And a lot of those beliefs, I sometimes wonder where they come from,
Well, that's the whole thing. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, they're generated from our parents and society. But then for society, it's all generated from from their family and the environment, and it just goes on and on like that. And we just keep handing each other this same kind of measuring stick, this same kind of tool, the same kind of idea of success and failure and identity, and categorizing people. It's all coming from this big pool that's coming from way back. So if you want me to now, I can mention this part because I kind of want to
Yeah, sure.
bridge this. Um, but one of the things I looked at is people don't want to be ostracized or feel um what is it, alone or separate from the group or different or any of that. We don't want to be xed out of the group. We don't want to be the only one that's not being whatever it is. And so I was looking at more of that. That's one. Yes, it is herd mentality, but it's at the same time it's a fear of not belonging, not being part of the group. Now that to me also comes from however many years humans have been on the planet and have had to operate in groups and and tribes and societies. And one of the things that we can look at historically, just from our little mini history, because we really don't have this full scope of history of
Mm.
human existence. But what we've seen migrations happen for all cultures throughout the planet. They've had to move for one reason or the other, right? And human beings are about survival. So human beings have moved from this location to that location because of those reasons, because they couldn't grow maybe food there, or that they have to revert to maybe more animal meat because of, but whatever the conditions are, it was about survival. Now what human beings knew as an individual, and plus it was sort of automatic, is that if you separate from the tribe or the group and you're by yourself, it's going to be harder to survive.
Mhm.
On your own is harder to survive. As a group, you can survive better. That is what we've sort of have got a program for. And I don't think we realize how ancient that program is. So you fast forward that program that's still part of our DNA, that's still part of us. And you see one of the reasons why we feel so displaced, and feel so abandoned and so scared to not be part of, to be ostracized or to be different than the rest of the group. Or if a, or in certain families where it's common, where they say, well, if you don't do this, which is standard to our family, you're not going to be part of the family anymore. There are cultures that do that. We're going to kick you out of the family. And that is terrifying. I know from firsthand experience. I remember my younger son was dating some years back. I don't know, like this had to be maybe, I don't know, 2000, early 2000. But anyway, he was dating a girl at the time from Sri Lanka. And I mean, for a while, and her parents were not aware of it. And there was such fear because her parents were really, they were all from Sri Lanka. So she wasn't first generation, like born here, but the culture, she was so afraid that what it would do to her parents to find out that she was not dating someone from her culture, that they've had to break up. And it was heartbreaking to watch that because they were both in tears. But she was so afraid of what would happen, that being, I don't know, kicked out of the family or whatever, that she had to separate from that. She had to separate from her love. And so you look at this now. She also has deep programs. All these people, we all have these deep programs of what would happen if we are kicked out of our tribe, if we're kicked out of our family tribe, if we're kicked out of our group. It could be just a social group. If we're just kicked out, period. If you're kicked out of your religious organizations, because they do that too.
Mm-hmm.
You don't adhere by these specific rules, you get kicked out. So it's in us, and it is a survival program. So the failure, you bring all that back to that idea of failing. The idea of failing is about disappointment. You're disappointed. You've disappointed other people. You've disappointed yourself. And that's the pressure that many people take on. Everybody's mental capacity to deal with that pressure is not the same. Some people go into mental illness. Sometimes they become bipolar, something triggers it. The emotional stuff that is triggering this. Manic depression or just depression, certain behaviors, the way you treat other people. All of this comes from this it's survival driven. And so that article, really, I could have written like 12 pages, right? But it is so much deeper, if people really look at it. And there are people that have just read it over and over. And I've seen people post, like, I had to read this several times. But it's to really gather all of that realization about what you're comprised of as a human being. What is your makeup? What makes you up? What is your belief system? Why is life what it is for you? And not blaming yourself, not being ashamed, not any of that, but just looking on at the programs of your own life, and maybe the dissatisfaction you've had, or the inability to change your life, whether financially or the relationships that you keep getting into and not able to get this ideal relationship that you want. You're carrying some survival programs. A lot of times, yes, it is generated from as closely as mother, father, those immediate family, and all that they've come with as well. So to me, it was just fascinating to look at that, because then I'm always looking at myself. What makes you up, Sonia? What are you made of? Why have you done these things or experienced these certain things? Even defines even the shape of your face. I like to tell people everything about your skeletal structure, everything about you is really reflective of all these hidden codes of information that you're unaware of.
Hmm. And some of these expectations are really harmful that society, lays upon you. For example, in the late 80s and early 90s, I spent a lot of time in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
And so after a while, I knew people there, and they knew when I was coming in, and we were spending time together. And what I noticed was a certain nervousness about the fact, especially among women, when they were heading towards 25, that they were not married. And I don't know if that is still the case. And I'm not saying here in Europe people do
Right.
not sometimes marry very early. Yes, some do, but in general, it I have a feeling it's more relaxed here. Nobody starts
The pressure.
getting nervous.
It's the different social setting, different cultures. Um, I always say all these places, they're just their own unique matrix, their own unique system, their own unique way of operating, unspoken rules that are there, their social rules from all these different countries and the cultures within those countries. And then the country itself, like they'll say, oh, people from Europe are this certain way. But then if you break down all these different other, um, let's say, groups and societies in Europe, they all have their own unique culture. But then there is like this overall unspoken, invisible base way that people operate. It's same thing here in the United States. You go to all the different states and they're all a little bit different. Oh, it's really laid back here, different in LA. Oh, you go to Seattle. But at the same time, there is also a blanket behavior of Americans, you know? So to me, it's really fascinating. If you go to little towns in LA, they all have their own little culture as well. So it's all these little pockets, little matrix here, in a matrix and a matrix and a matrix. But I think that here in the United States, they do have their taboo levels are definitely higher in many different ways. And also, as far as marriage, the pressure, on women, I think that's always been there. But then again, you have cultures where it's, you were like an old maid if you're like 15 or 16 and not married,
Yeah.
um, let alone 30. So there's just is all these different systems, or how you're looked on if you have a child and you're not married. So we've created like all these rules. I think the article was talking about that as well. All these rules that we've created for ourselves, and then everybody is sort of, not everyone, but a lot of people feel the pressure of trying to meet all these different kinds of expectations. They're trying to find this balance, this middle ground. You don't have any kids, how somebody might be looked on, they don't have any kids, or how they may feel. Because I've talked to other people, I've talked to people who are fine with it, and I've talked to other people who have dealt with the discomfort of maybe how some people respond to them. It's like, oh, you don't have any kids, and for them, it's like, well, is there a rule that I have to have kids? So it's all of these different things, and I think people have to really just come into a space of realizing that my life is really absolutely mine, like it belongs to me, and there is really no rule outside of the conditions that have been set by by society and so on, for me to have some sort of barometer or some kind of guidepost as to what I do. But ultimately, my life is mine, and I think some people are afraid of that, though. the idea that your life is totally yours to do with it what you will. And if you think about it, that's what happens anyway. You do with it what you will. Even though you may be trying to follow protocol, you're still doing whatever you want to do.
Mm.
And you get many parents, that's why many parents get upset, because they think, oh, you just don't listen. So you see that we are doing it, but we're following to some degree still these other conditions that are in place. We're trying to meet those conditions that are in place. So I think that's really big for people to really get a hold of, to free themselves. There's so much stress and pressure from trying to live up to expectations that were just formed by somebody else, some other troubled person. A group of troubled people run the world to begin with. A group of troubled people run the corporation. A group of troubled people that have had troubled childhood and bullied or were the bullies. That's what we're dealing with. Everybody's coming to the table with all their nonsense, and we bring it to all our interactions and relationships with other people. And I think if everybody just realizes that we're all full of it. So what I remember, one of the things I used to tell my kids when they were younger was, they were teenagers, and I don't like, they were complaining about somebody. And I said, let me remind you, you huh, you're annoying to someone. I guarantee you there are people that find you annoying as well. Because we tend to think everybody else is annoying, but not us. And so I'd like to remind them, I'm like, no, they're sure they're people. You could go out there and get a number going, a list going of people who find you annoying, just to bring them back to, reality check. So I think, those things are extremely important. And then we would be free. Then we wouldn't put pressure on other people. If we just focused on what you want to do with your own version of life, you're this free agent, then we wouldn't have so much time to harass other people. We already harass ourselves. We harass ourselves, and then we harass other people. Misery loves company. So nobody fails at life. It's like everything you do it by choice. I don't care if you say, well, you're doing it because, you're still doing it by choice.
Mm. Yeah, I remember one sentence that my mother always threw at me, and I found it even as a little child. I found it very strange. She said to me, "Don't do that. What shall the people think?"
Well, she said, don't do that. What would other people think? Yes, exactly. Precisely. Because that's how people feel. That's how um, families feel, parents feel, because everybody wants the next person, the neighbors, the people at church, the friends. Everybody wants to project this model, you know, model ways, this Stepford wife, town of Stepford, kind of behavior. People don't want other people to know about all their stuff, because it's what? It's not socially acceptable. We were afraid that we would be looked at a little differently. People would look at us differently if they knew. So we can't let people know what we're made of. And then all of that just really helps to create more dysfunction. The more people have to suppress their emotions or certain things about themselves, the more the thicker the mask we have to wear, is the more emotional problems we have. You get people unraveling, and we have a lot of sexual deviance and dysfunction. I think a lot of that stems from a lot of hidden things, a lot of things that people just choke and they push down. And so here we are, when somebody says on the news, oh, he was always so nice and so quiet. Well, that's the first sign there's a problem. Always so nice, so quiet. You know, so you start looking at look at all those things and you think, wow, because people are busy like trying to keep a lid on who they are. And after a while, it's like a pimple that pops. For some people, it becomes an explosion. And we have all these idiots that suddenly run around and doing crazy things, as we've seen, shooting and doing all. They have there something, there's a deficiency that's happened to lead them to a certain trend of thought. Now, you probably agree with me with this, but you know when I hear of, like, okay, mothers that have done really strange things, or like maybe killing their kids, and you hear them say on the news about how they're going to be tried. They have to determine if this person was insane when they did this. Well, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah. I mean, they have to determine, this person killed. Are they sane enough to stand trial so we can decide if they're crazy? No. The fact that they even thought of it, yeah, something got unhooked in here. That's just a given. So that's why I'm always fascinated. I'm like, no, you're crazy for saying, well, try to figure out if that person is crazy. There you go. I'm like, you're crazy too. So we come unraveled. There's a lot of unraveling that that happens, and that's part of why we have so we have rules in society, why governments create these rules. And I'm always saying to people, it's because they create rules to help to contain the human animal, the possible behaviors of the human being, because we are can be as dark as we can be as light. We are vast. There is no exception. We learn to curtail certain behaviors unless something triggers us where we become unhinged and then we behave a certain way. But we have the ability to get all kinds of unbelievable crazy, as well as we have the ability to become unbelievably conscious and aware. We can swing to either extreme. And I think when we understand this and we accept that, and we recognize the things that trigger us to go into what we define as those dark places, I think it makes a difference. It makes a difference. Yeah, when you look at your situation, who you are, your beliefs about yourself, and able to really kind of understand what would make you go there. Survival is what makes people go into those behaviors.
Yeah, and sometimes it has really, really strange effects. I just recently had a clash with my mother.
No.
And the thing was, I had a lot of things here renovated and so forth, and bought new furniture. It was about time.
Mhm.
And I'm a kind of person that likes to push things like that.
Right,
But,
right.
then comes a point, now it's happening now.
Yeah.
So, and the entire time, they were here like, I don't know, 5 times.
Mhm.
The first day they did the first my bathroom, new furniture in there, did that, and then new floors in the bedroom, and then they did the kitchen. So, and the entire time my mother was perfectly okay with it.
Mhm.
And she during that time, she picked me up once a week to do groceries because
Mhm.
I no longer have a car. And
Right,
for me, with lifting heavy things, that's a
right.
little bit complicated. So,
Mhm.
and now the last time that they were there, um, she called me and she said, "Yeah, so how is it going?" I said, "Yeah, they are still here.
Mhm.
And today they will finish the kitchen and then I'm through."
Mhm.
And then she said, "Yeah, but what kind of safety precautions are you taking?" I said, "What are you talking about?" "Yeah, now that I'm in my 80s, I don't want to spend the rest of my life fighting with coronavirus." And yeah, and they come from Syria. Yeah, duh, but they have been here since 2015.
Oh my
And so
God.
on and so on. And then I said, "What is your problem?" I said, "I'm not even in the same room with them." "Yeah, but did they show you a test?" I said, "What? Do you honestly think I will ask them for a test? I will
Oh
not even
my
ask them
God.
to wear a mask."
Oh my gosh.
And then
Uh,
she said, "Yeah, maybe then when we go shopping, you can come down and right away wear a mask when you enter the car."
Because she wanted to make sure you were covered in the car with her.
Yeah.
Oh,
And then after that, I said, "You know what? Forget it. Uh,
oh my
I
God.
go by feet. No problem. I will walk."
Oh,
And yeah, I never heard back.
oh.
Can you believe that?
Oh yeah, I can. Yeah, I can because it's that crazy. I mean, everywhere it's like that crazy. I know in LA, everybody knows that LA has been one of the crazier places with how they've responded to all of this. Yeah, it's been interesting because of the numbers and the flu and the escalation of fear and people's inability to do critical thinking or rational thinking and realize what makes sense and what doesn't make sense and to really understand the immune system and their responsibility, their role in securing their immune system, and that's really ultimately what is needed. Unless somebody has autoimmune issues, then still you do all that you can to keep your body in optimum state, and you use your common sense. I think common sense has completely gone out the door and replaced completely with fear. That's really what people are operating by at this time, and it's fear. It's a survival situation as well. Fear of death, fear of dying, fear of not being here, fear, and the systems in place certainly reinforce that. They keep reinforcing it all the time. So, there's other things going on, that I talked about in the very beginning. I don't know if you ever saw that article. I wrote it in March, I think, of last year, where it talked about, I think, a time of upgrades and resets.
Yes,
And
I read that.
yeah, I mean, and then there was another one that I wrote. Don't ask me specifically right now, but the marketing of death or something at this time. So I think that there's a lot going on here besides the health part of it. I think that that is just a vehicle to get people to acquiesce to certain things because they know that a human being's greatest fear is not existing, is annihilation, is not being here in a body. And how do you attack that? How do you utilize that? Well, you fear. So with the constant threat of possible death, because that's what people think, they think the virus, and they think, oh, I better protect myself because it could die, because that's what they've been hearing over and over and over without really thinking, being able to really process that properly. So, there's a lot to be said about that. But this is a time of data compiling, and that was one of the things that I talked about earlier last year. I'm like, well, this is the year of the census for one. That's data compiling. Then, the big, then 5G was like this big thing, um, in the very beginning last year as well. Then we are dealing with the real ID, particularly here, that master ID. And I forget what else, but it was definitely already a year of data gathering.
Mm.
And the more that the more that they could get people to, one, yeah, you go get tested. That's data. That's a lot of data. If they missed you over here, we got you over here. But either way, they need to get as many people as possible in a data bank, because we are heading, which talked about like in 2010, 2009, we are heading into a more virtual life, a virtual existence on levels that most people just do not yet even understand. And in order for that transition to happen that way, you have to get everything in, as all these people in the database, in the system, um, so that the networking, the technology can work better. And this is no different than when smart technology first started to emerge, and that's when I talked about it. With smart technology is about the networking, the connection of all these various technologies, like in your house, connected together, your washer, dryer, your refrigerator, everything connected like to a central system, but everything can communicate basically. This interconnected communication. And so back then I said, human beings are going to be the final step to going literally online. It's like it's a smart human. Um, and that's where we're heading. This is why a lot of this is happening. And the other thing, I was going to say something else about that. Oh, and this is why this is an introduction to people, of more of a preparation, more of people's minds, people who weren't into the virtual reality, meaning the computer as much, children, everybody, the whole world that we know of anyway, besides the pockets of people that are completely, off the grid, tribes of people still living the way that they do. That the base world then, if has been put into this space where everybody is, our minds are been targeted more online. We're forced to be virtual. We're forced to get on the computer and interlink with it, connect with it. So you find that after a few months and after a year, our programming has changed, just like everything else. A habit, it takes, they say, 21 days, depending on what the habit is and what the person is, to form a habit. Well, this habit um, has had time to be reinforced. So there are things about us. That was the article too back then, to remind people that you are changing. You will not notice some of the changes that have happened with you because you're in a ritual of behavior now. You've surrendered to Simon says, and you are now in a pattern of behaviors, repetition, till it's become second nature. So there's a lot of changes that's happened in everybody that's now become second nature. They don't even realize that you've changed. And this was all part of it. So it's taken this long. And then with the mask has sort of been part of the reset because of the programming of whatever that transition is supposed to be. the mask sort of comes on, and it's like it's encoded. The idea of it, it's encoded. Every time we put it on, it already has the coding. Just the behavior itself represents a whole lot more, like a much bigger picture. And so when you put that on, it's like the brain is reminded of a particular behavior, a particular belief system that's supposed to happen. So you put it on, and there it is. Boom. That's the symbol. So the mask will forever remain as a symbol of reinforcement. That's the word. Reinforcing certain programs, certain behaviors that are supposed to, that they want cemented. The mask will always do that. We That's how we operate. We like to have a symbol of something, just like in the spiritual movements. You can use you can use a crystal, you can use whatever it is. Sometimes you do certain meditations that they do, and you can have a little rock or stone, and you put it in the palm of your hand, and you empower it with whatever the belief is or thought, and it reminds you. It's like, there it is. Well, it's no different. The mask is no different. Every time you see a mask, just like breast cancer, remember, you see a pink ribbon, you see pink, you automatically know what that is. So our first language is symbols. We have to keep remembering that. That's our first way of communication, is symbols. So what greater way to reinforce the information encoded in the symbol, but by doing it in that manner, right across the board. And we can see this too with like what I'm saying makes sense. When you see the Mercedes symbol, you already know what that means, right? You know the idea of luxury or whatever that's encoded in that, or whatever, a Rolls Royce or whatever that may be. We're just, it's just the way we operate. And so they use symbols, then you don't have to think about it, because your brain already knows what the symbol means. And then there you are, you're living in that. So people, they don't know that. And there are people that will listen to this, and we're so excited to live in our fear, or we're so committed. That's the word. We're so committed to our fear and our limitations and our comfortable ideas and ways of thinking and living, that often people don't want to be jarred from that. No, that's not true. No, you only say that because you don't want to change. You want to stay in your comfort zone and in the comfort of someone else making decisions for you. That's basically it. Was that what the system does? Government comes along and they go, okay, well, we're going to make decisions for you, and this is what you're going to do. And you get a lot of people that go, okay, great. Yeah, because we trust you. That's why we put you in power, so that you could tell us what to do. That's how human beings are. You've got to have somebody else tell them what to do. Take the responsibility away from themselves. They don't want to be responsible. You tell me what to do, and I will do it. This is where we are.
Yeah, unfortunately. I have on my Odyssey channel, I have an interview with an Israeli lady, and she was, as a little child, she survived the terror reign of Hitler. And she spoke from that perspective about the times that we are experiencing now. And she said, how they did it? They started with telling the Germans that the Jews are spreader of disease. Yeah.
And what does that lead back to? You're scared because if they've got the disease, that will kill you, because it always leads back to death. It always leads back to a human being's core fear is annihilation, is not existing. It always roots back to that. That's how you trigger and get people to do what you want them to do. You just hit them right in that core human survival spot. And it's like, okay, well, take them out, get rid of them. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, I get it, and she's right. And even, you know, in other people of color, I mean, there's so many things, you know, like they don't want to they don't want to take the vaccine, but they're more, you know, vulnerable. Whatever the narrative is that they spin, um, it's making sure that we all stay divided. That is something else other people need to think about. We need, they want, the system likes for people to stay divided, whether by division by race or by social standing or you know, or power, you know, whatever, money. Stay divided, because if everybody was to come together, then it would be difficult for a very small handful of people to run all these people. So if you keep them divided, then it's easier to control all these people, and you keep making sure that they're pitted against each other. You keep making sure that they have beliefs about each other to make sure that they stay separated to some degree. So it just goes on, and it's been like that for the long. It's been, I don't. You look at history. Look at Rome. You look at, you know, all these societies. That's how you get one person or two people or five people to be in power. And you go, how do millions of people, why are millions of people terrified of five people? Well, this is why. They get I used to get people to come and watch in the Colosseums, Rome, you know, people tearing each other apart. And they have reason to see that that is okay. And hangings, you know, where people come out, families come out and they watch the hangings. It is amazing when you look at human beings and the vulnerability, the vulnerable mind, and how systems that have made themselves the rulers or the decision makers for mass amounts of people, how they psychologically implement ways to be able to keep everybody in line and to get, you know, get everybody to do as they are told. And this moment in time is one of those serious moments to see just how much we can keep everybody in line, just how well would they listen if we keep stepping it up and we say, you know, okay, do this, you know, uh Japan with that insanity of the anal swab. And
That is China.
I mean, I'm sorry, China, right? It was this Japanese couple, I think, that's was suing because of the mental pain and suffering that they endured going through that. And
Yeah, why
you
did
know,
they do it in the first place? Why did
I
they
think because
consent?
they may, I don't know if they landed in China, because if you land there as a foreigner, you can't get past immigration, like you can't get in.
Yeah, good. Then I
So
fly back.
yeah,
Goodbye.
but I agree. But I think sometimes with people, they get caught off guard, and then they just kind of like, I don't know what to do, and then they go ahead and they do it because they're in such, in a way, shock. I mean, it's a violation, a big violation, and but there are people who will say, well, if it'll keep us safe, I'll do it.
Yeah.
So naturally, you can keep upping it. You can keep doing more stuff. Let's see what else they'll agree to. If people said no, then there's nothing they could do. If the majority of people go, no, we're not doing it, anything at all,
Yeah.
then it couldn't be done. That's why you have to keep people divided. Too many people. If they all agreed, it came together and go, we're done. There's nothing, you know, there's nothing that they could do about it. So you got to keep them divided.
Yeah. Did you hear what they planned here in Germany?
What?
Around Easter, they wanted even to close the supermarkets. So that is what they said on Monday. Yeah. meaning the Thursday before.
Wait a minute, you're talking Easter of when? Of this
Yeah,
year?
this, yeah,
Of
yeah,
2021? Are you kidding me?
yeah. And so next Thursday is the Thursday before the so-called Good Friday.
Right.
Um, I have to explain something because in Germany, Sundays and holidays, the supermarkets are not open anyhow.
Okay.
So Friday closed, but they wanted to close the Thursday as well before that Friday. Then they wanted to open on Saturday. Then Sunday, Monday are holidays, Easter holidays, closed anyhow. And then they wanted to add the Tuesday that the supermarkets are still closed. So, and today, yesterday, she wrote back, Madame Merkel gave a press conference and apologized to to the German people for that stupid idea. But Sonia, I have to tell you, the fact alone that they are considering closing the supermarkets, I find that scary.
Well, the whole bottom line of it is that they can only do what the people will accept and allow.
Yeah.
There's way more of the people than there are of those one or two people. This is the problem, because then everybody goes along with it and then they just do more. I mean, that's everywhere. Yeah, because they can. I mean, all the closures, all the destruction that's happened here in Los Angeles with all these businesses, all these people's business. I mean, for years they've had it, and it's killed people's, businesses. And why? They don't do it for the flu. When all these people die from the flu every year, they don't do any of that. So it's just really something. It's really something. And it's been interesting because obviously the virus doesn't hit like the big places like here, like Walmart and Costco and the supermarkets here. The virus knows not to go in these places apparently. Amazon, this virus doesn't go to any of these. They're like, oh no, the virus says I'm going to stay away from those places. But here, the small mom and pop, I'm going to go in there. So that's where we are.
Yeah.
People wake up. Gotta wake up and decide what you're willing to tolerate for yourself. And you don't have to get out there and do, if you don't want to get out there and do a protest, I'm not saying that, but I find, at least here we can do that, but I find places and ways to operate and buy my food that doesn't force me to acquiesce like that. Sure, I have to go in Whole Foods. I wear a scarf. I don't do a mask, but when I have to go in a place like that, but for me, I have to evaluate how important that place is, and I go in very few of those places. I mean, didn't even go into restaurants. Well, you couldn't before. You could go pick up, but even the whole process made me not do it, maybe not go. So you have to know what your boundaries are. And, I won't go into all of that, but I knew what my boundaries were with what I would do and what I would not do, and how important things were to me to make choices that I've made. When will I fly? I don't know when I'll get to fly.
Yeah.
Because of the rules that they've enforced, and it's forcing people to have to make a decision, and people are doing it because they want to get back to doing their stuff. So either way, the system wins because people go, okay, well, that's what I have to do. It's the only way that they can keep doing more of what they want to do, is because people go, okay, well, we just go ahead and do that.
Yeah. Yeah, they have little projects here. There is one city, but not here in my area, where if you want to go downtown, you have to do a quick test, and then you get a ribbon, and then you are entered. You are allowed to enter downtown.
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm not kidding you.
You have to
And
get a test?
mhm,
Oh man, I guess I wouldn't be going downtown.
yeah, of course not.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
See
but
that?
people do it. Just
That's what I'm talking
yeah.
about.
Mm,
It's the people that do it. If people didn't, they wouldn't do it. They would stop because it's
yeah.
yeah. But people go, okay. And it's just like everything. It's like, oh well, if they say, well, you have to get chipped to fly, there'd be people that would do it. There's more people that would do it, and then you get the people like myself, tons of people like that who say no,
Mm.
we're not doing that. So I don't know, hopefully people snap out of it, because it's like, what next? What next will you be told to do? It's like, well, you did that, so now uh you know
Yeah,
you
we
got to do
know
this.
already who you are. Now we are just quarreling about the price.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Basically.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But anyway, yeah, so that's it for me. Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
And what we also have here, so just briefly to wrap it up, we already here in Germany have Chinese scouts that are looking for companies that they can buy up.
Scouts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This is a high time to come in and snatch things up. That's
Mm-hmm.
land, people losing properties, just so much. It's the same bigger group of people, because what he who holds the most gold holds the power.
Mm.
And so now is going to be a time of those who hold a lot of gold to hold more gold. So individuals have to find ways. You have to know the game and go, okay, well, how do I find gold for myself? What do I do for myself? Because we can spend time going, yeah, but they have all the money and this is what they're doing. But it's like, okay, but now that that's the game, what are you going to do for yourself? And you have to tell anybody else, but you have to have a plan. You have to have a plan of action for yourself. That's basically how I see that this has to happen. You can spend time fighting the system, or we can build a new system, and it starts with each person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that interview with that Israeli lady, that is quite chilling. And then she said it is always throughout history when medicine and politics team together. It's really
Absolutely
not the
deadly.
best outcome.
Oh yeah, very, very deadly, very, very deadly, and that's
Yeah.
what we see.
And
That's
she said in the end, and I would have never expected that I'm afraid of the same people now that I were afraid of when I was a child.
Isn't that crazy?
Mhm.
That the same situation is happening. I have a friend also from Iran, and she lives here in the United States, and she said it's crazy, but it's what happened overnight in Iran when suddenly they had to, cover up. They came in,
Mhm.
and that was it. It's just like overnight,
Mm.
boom. And she says this reminds her of that. Anybody that says that, now reminds like the lady of Germany then, and or Iran, like that right now, it's like, where are we?
Mhm.
Yeah, pretty wild. Pretty
Yeah.
wild times. But it'll settle. That's the thing. This is all going to settle at some point. There will be what we define as normality. But in the meantime, I think people need to understand that the system in place is getting as much done as possible, because they know they can't keep this up forever, as much as possible, over a period of time. And once that's been accomplished, then they'll then it'll be okay. You have enough people, um, whether you're vaccinated or whatever, you have enough people doing as you need them to do, then it's like, okay. So
Yeah. And another thing is when they start trying to do it too fast, they start making big mistakes.
yeah, one could only hope.
Yeah, I'm counting on that.
Yeah, one can only hope. Yeah, well, they make mistakes even now with the
Yeah.
contradiction of things they say, but the majority of people aren't even hearing. They're not even hearing when they contradict themselves. And you go, well, wait a second, didn't they just say this? And then but they count on the fact that people aren't hearing. The majority of people aren't hearing. So this is why it works so well. It's like, oh, we made a mistake, but I don't think they noticed. I'm like, I did.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Anyway,
Sonia, I thank you so much for coming on. I
thank
know you are
you.
a very, very busy lady, and I will let you go now. But
Thank you.
thanks for cutting out some time.
Oh, thank you so much. Always a pleasure, Judith. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks to your audience. Oh, my website, which usually I think list anyway, therealsoniabarrett.com
Yeah.
is my
And
website.
YouTube channel, everything will be linked below.
Right.
And subscribe to Sonia. She always has very uplifting and inspirational content. So that's a good idea.
Yeah, all right. Thanks again. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.